If you were to walk into a museum today, unlatch the heavy steel deck of a German Panther or Tiger tank, and peer into the engine compartment, you would be staring at a piece of mechanical artwork. The German Maybach V12 engines were absolute marvels of precision engineering. They featured incredibly tight tolerances, highly complex carburetors, and bespoke, hand-machined parts crafted by master artisans in spotless Bavarian factories. By the strict, theoretical standards of peacetime automotive engineering, the heavy German engines were vastly superior to almost anything the Allies were putting onto the battlefield. They were the thoroughbred racehorses of armored warfare. But World War II was not a pristine peacetime auto show. It was a brutal, filthy, grinding war of attrition fought in freezing mud, choking dust, deep snow, and relentless driving rain. And in this incredibly hostile environment, the German High Command and their brilliant engineers learned a terrifying, war-losing lesson about armored conflict. A mechanical masterpiece is utterly, completely useless if your soldiers cannot fix it in the dark while under artillery fire. When captured German mechanics, logistics officers, and engineers were finally given the opportunity to inspect the engine bays of the American M4 Sherman, they were completely baffled. Operating under the myth of their own racial and technological superiority, they fully expected to find a crude, inferior, primitive machine. Instead, they found a bizarre, Frankenstein-like triumph of the American automotive industry. It was an engine philosophy so radically different, so incredibly modular, and so deeply focused on ease of maintenance, that it completely shattered their understanding of mechanical warfare. This is the hidden logistical story of the Sherman tank's engine compartment, and how the United States defeated the supposedly invincible German engineering, not with better science, but with a vastly superior wrench. To fully understand the shock and profound jealousy of the German mechanics, you first have to look at the daily nightmare they lived through while trying to keep their own heavy tanks running. The German panzer divisions operated under an uncompromising philosophy of specialized perfection. The Maybach HL-230 engine used in the formidable Panther and Tiger tanks was a massive 23-liter, 700-horsepower beast made of cast iron, but it was incredibly, notoriously fragile. Because the internal tolerances were machined so tightly, the engine demanded high-octane fuel and pristine operating conditions. The slightest bit of battlefield dust slipping past a filter, or the use of low-quality, synthetic substitute fuel, would frequently cause the Maybach to violently overheat, catch fire, or throw a rod right through the block. When a Panther's engine inevitably broke down, it was not just a mechanical failure, it was a logistical catastrophe. The Maybach engine was so deeply integrated into the complex, heavily armored hull of the tank that a field mechanic could not simply reach in and replace a piston or patch a gasket. The engine bay was notoriously cramped, requiring the removal of dozens of secondary systems just to reach the core block. Furthermore, if the tank had suffered lower hull damage, the German mechanics had to deal with the infamous interleaved road wheels, a suspension system so deeply complex that changing a single inner tire could take half a day of agonizing labor in the mud. To conduct a standard engine swap on a Panther or a Tiger, the disabled tank had to be physically towed by highly specialized recovery half-tracks, miles behind the front lines to a dedicated repair depot. It required specialized, heavy-duty gantry cranes to lift the engine out, and it required master mechanics using bespoke, specialized tools to tune the complex dual carburetors. A standard engine replacement could take a highly trained crew 3 to 4 solid days of agonizing labor. In a highly mobile war where the front lines shifted by dozens of miles a day, a tank that takes 4 days to fix is a tank you are forced to abandon and blow up yourself. When the United States abruptly entered the war following Pearl Harbor in 1941, they faced a massive, terrifying industrial problem. America simply did not have a dedicated tank engine industry. The U.S. military leadership realized they needed thousands of medium tanks immediately to supply both their own rapidly expanding army and the British forces fighting in North Africa. But there were no factories building 500 horsepower tank engines. Instead of pausing the war effort to wait 3 years to design a perfect, bespoke military engine like the Germans did, the U.S. Ordnance Department and figures like William S. Knudsen turned directly to the civilian automotive and aviation industries of Detroit. They issued a simple, frantic, and highly pragmatic directive to the titans of American industry. Use whatever you are already building, mass produce it immediately, and figure out how to make it fit inside the back of a tank. This chaotic, brilliant approach led to the M4 Sherman being powered by an incredibly weird assortment of engines throughout the conflict. The early variants used the Wright R975 Whirlwind, a massive radial aircraft engine that gave the Sherman its distinct high-profile hull. Some variants, intended mostly for the Marines and the Soviet Union, utilized massive General Motors twin diesels bolted together. But the two engines that truly baffled the captured German mechanics were the Chrysler A57 multibank and the legendary Ford GAA. When German mechanics opened the rear deck of an M4A4 Sherman and looked at the Chrysler A57 multibank engine, they legitimately thought the Americans had lost their minds. Chrysler, a major automotive manufacturer, desperately wanted to build tanks, but they didn't have a massive tank engine in their inventory. What they did have was a highly reliable, mass-produced, 250 cubic inch flathead inline-six engine that they used in their standard civilian passenger cars. So, in a stroke of absolute mad scientist engineering, Chrysler simply took 5 of these standard car engines, arranged them in a star pattern around a central gear, and bolted them all to a single massive drive shaft. To the rigid, perfectionist German mind, this was mechanical heresy of the highest order. It was a 30-cylinder engine. It had 5 water pumps, 5 carburetors, and 5 ignition systems. It weighed over 5,000 pounds. It looked like an absolute plumber's nightmare of belts, hoses, spark plugs, and radiating exhaust pipes. The Germans assumed this Frankenstein engine would violently shake itself to pieces the very moment it hit the muddy fields of combat. But they were dead wrong. The Chrysler multibank was practically indestructible because it was made of civilian car parts designed for the daily commute of the American consumer. The tolerances were loose, forgiving, and incredibly reliable. It did not require master mechanics. It could be serviced by anyone who knew how to fix a standard Chrysler Plymouth. Most importantly, it had built-in redundancy. If one of the 5 car engines took a piece of shrapnel and catastrophically failed, the Sherman could literally disengage that specific engine block and limp back to base on the remaining 4 engines. It was bizarre, it was heavy, and it was loud, but it absolutely refused to quit. While the Chrysler multibank proved the chaotic genius of American ingenuity, the Ford GAA V8 proved the overwhelming, terrifying dominance of American industrial capacity. This was the engine that quickly became the absolute gold standard of the Sherman fleet, particularly in the highly favored M4A3 variant. Ford had originally designed the GAA as a massive, supercharged V12 aircraft engine intended to compete with Rolls-Royce. When the military needed power for tanks, Ford simply chopped 4 cylinders off the design, resulting in a naturally aspirated, dual overhead cam V8. It produced an incredibly smooth 500 horsepower and an unbelievable 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, giving the Sherman explosive acceleration. When German engineers examined the Ford GA, they were not just surprised. They were stunned by the sheer industrial arrogance of the metallurgy. These Americans were casually mass-producing massive, all-aluminum engine blocks. This was a strategic material that the resource-starved German economy heavily rationed strictly for fighter aircraft. To see entire tank divisions powered by gleaming, lightweight aluminum blocks was a visceral demonstration of the insurmountable wealth of the United States. But the true shock for the Wehrmacht mechanics wasn't the horsepower, the torque, or the aluminum. It was the philosophy of how the engine was installed in the chassis. The ultimate genius of the American Sherman tank was not just the engine, it was the engine bay itself. American designers knew that in a global war, tanks were going to break down. They were going to get shot, and they were going to suck up mud, water, and debris. So they intentionally designed the entire rear of the Sherman around the lowest-ranking field, mechanic. The massive rear engine doors of a Sherman swung wide open, exposing absolutely everything. The Ford GA and the other Sherman engines were designed as a unified power package. The engine block, the cooling fans, the massive radiators, and the exhaust manifolds were all bolted together on a single, easily removable internal sled. When an American Sherman blew an engine on the front line, the crew didn't need to abandon the vehicle or wait for it to be towed back to a specialized factory in the rear. They didn't need a massive gantry crane. An American Armored Maintenance Battalion would simply drive up in a standard M31 tank recovery vehicle, a modified tank chassis with a heavy A-frame, boom crane, right there in the mud, sometimes under direct enemy mortar fire. The 19-year-old mechanics would pop the rear doors, undo a few clearly marked, quick disconnect fuel lines, unbolt the main engine mounts, separate the universal joint, and simply yank the entire dead engine unit out of the back of the tank in one solid piece. They would immediately drop a brand new, pre-packaged Ford V8 directly from a wooden shipping crate into the bay, tighten down the bolts, top off the fluids, and the tank was ready to roll back into combat. What took the master mechanics of the German army 4 days of agonizing labor in a pristine factory, the American GIs could routinely accomplish in 4 hours in a muddy field while getting shot at. This mechanical simplicity was backed by a supply chain that completely broke the will of the Axis powers. When a German mechanic needed a new water pump for a Maybach engine, he had to fill out requisition forms, wait for a specific part to be hand-machined in a factory that was currently being bombed by the 8th Air Force, and hope it survived the shattered railway network to reach the front. The parts were bespoke, meaning a pump from an early Panther might not perfectly fit a late-model Panther without hand filing. When an American mechanic needed a part, it was already there. The arsenal of democracy standardized everything. A piston from a Ford GAA built in Detroit in 1943 fit perfectly into a Ford GA built in 1945. Liberty ships were carrying tens of thousands of pre-packed, greased, and crated spare parts across the Atlantic. If an engine was too damaged to fix in the field, the Americans didn't scrap it. They shipped the broken engine all the way back to the United States, where a factory rebuilt it completely, while the tank it came from was already fighting the next battle with a fresh engine crate that had been dropped in the mud next to it. For the highly trained, veteran German tank commanders, this mechanical reality was deeply demoralizing, operating as a psychological weapon just as potent as artillery. A German panzer unit would fight a brutal, exhausting engagement on a Tuesday afternoon, successfully knocking out the engines and tracks of 5 American Shermans. The German tanks would survive the battle, but their fragile Maybach engines would be pushed to the breaking point, requiring days of intensive, delicate maintenance, forcing the formidable Panthers to withdraw miles to the rear just to change their oil and tune their carburetors. The very next morning, at the break of dawn, the German scouts would look through their binoculars and see a sight that defied their logic. Those exact same 5 American Shermans were rolling back over the hill, their engines roaring, completely repaired overnight. The German mechanics were baffled by the Sherman because they fundamentally misunderstood the assignment of global, industrialized war. They built heavy, complicated engines to be admired by engineers and paraded through the streets of Berlin. The United States built modular engines to be quickly replaced by 19-year-old farm boys, holding a standard, mass-produced wrench. The M4 Sherman proved that in the grueling, bloody mathematics of World War II, true technological superiority isn't about how tight your mechanical tolerances are. It's about how fast you can get your steel back into the fight.